The desperate cry for help. The galaxy was a vast, cold place, full of dangers that no one could predict. But no one ever thought it could be so cruel. On one small, peaceful planet, the unthinkable happened. The planet was under attack, and the people were desperate. They had never experienced anything like this before. The invaders came in the dead of night, their ships dark against the stars, moving with silent precision. They didn't announce their arrival. They didn't give any warning. They just came, and they came with the force of a storm. The planet's leaders scrambled to respond. The military was small, and their weapons were not enough to stop the attackers. They had tried to fight back, but it was clear they were outmatched. The planet's defense systems were crumbling, and the people were beginning to lose hope. The cities were being destroyed, buildings reduced to rubble. Families were torn apart, and the survivors had nowhere to run. The attackers showed no mercy. They burned villages, destroyed homes, and took what they wanted without care for the innocent lives they were crushing. In the midst of the chaos, the leaders knew there was only one chance left to save their world: reach out for help. They had heard rumors of a distant planet, a planet known for its strength and courage. That planet was Earth. The people of Earth had once been allies to many in the galaxy, known for their fierce warriors and unshakable will. The leaders knew that if they didn't act fast, their world would be lost forever. The decision was made. A desperate message was sent through the galaxy, a cry for help broadcast on every frequency available. The message was simple but filled with panic. We are under attack. Our planet is dying. Please help us. We beg for your assistance. It was a desperate call, one that could mean life or death for the planet. The message was sent to every corner of the galaxy, but the leaders knew it might already be too late. The attackers were too strong, and the defense systems were failing fast. No one had answered their call yet, but the message was clear. They needed help, and they needed it now. As the message traveled through space, many other civilizations received it. Some listened, but dismissed it as another cry from a small, weak world. The galaxy had seen countless conflicts, and many believed that the small planets couldn't defend themselves. The attackers were ruthless, and no one thought any other planet would risk sending help. After all, the galaxy was full of dangers. Why risk fighting an unknown enemy for a planet that might be too weak to save? But not everyone ignored the message. The leaders on Earth received the cry for help loud and clear. They had seen the chaos spreading through the galaxy, and they had already heard of the enemies who were attacking innocent worlds. Earth was no stranger to conflict, and the people had built a reputation as some of the toughest fighters in the galaxy. Their ships were powerful, and their warriors had faced and conquered battles that others could never dream of winning. Still, the decision to help was not an easy one. The leaders of Earth knew the risks. They knew that sending their fleet across the galaxy would put their own world in danger. If they failed, they would lose everything. But Earth had a history of never backing down from a challenge. They had always stood up for the oppressed, and now it was time to do so again. The Earth Council met in secrecy, and after much debate, they came to a decision. The fleet would be sent. The risk was high, but Earth could not stand by and let another planet fall. The fleet would depart immediately, without hesitation. Earth's warriors were ready for the fight, and they would not let this planet be forgotten. They had to act now, or it might be too late. The message was sent to the commander of Earth's war fleet. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring out at the stars. The fleet was ready, and he could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This would not be an easy mission, and the enemy they faced was unknown. But the one thing that Earth's fleet had always counted on was its determination. They had faced impossible odds before, and they had always emerged victorious. This time would be no different. The ships powered up, engines humming to life. The commander looked to his crew, who were ready for whatever lay ahead. They knew this was not just a mission. It was a chance to prove that Earth would not let any planet suffer in silence. They would stand together, no matter the cost. As Earth's war fleet began its journey, the leaders of the attacked planet waited in silence. They had sent their message, and now all they could do was hope. They knew that time was running out. The enemy was closing in, and their world was crumbling around them. But they still had one last hope left: the people of Earth. The message had been sent, and now Earth's fleet was on its way. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity was capable of. The fight had only just begun. The stars stretched out ahead of Earth's war fleet, a long line of ships cutting through the blackness of space. The vast expanse of the galaxy felt quiet, almost as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The ships were on a mission, one that could change the fate of an entire planet. At the helm of the flagship, Commander Jason Aldridge stood tall, his hands firmly gripping the control panel. He had led many missions, but none like this. There was something different about this one. This wasn't just a routine battle. This was a cry for help from a world desperate to survive. And Earth was the only hope they had left. His mind raced as he reviewed the mission briefing for what seemed like the 100th time. The attackers had already wreaked havoc on the planet, and their strength was overwhelming. Earth's war fleet was one of the most powerful in the galaxy, but even with its might, this would be no easy fight. The enemy wasn't known to Earth, and that made them unpredictable. Still, Aldridge had made up his mind. Earth would never back down from a fight, especially when the lives of innocent people were at stake. "Commander, we're approaching the outer edge of the system," Lieutenant Rachel Torres called out from the communications panel. "We'll be entering their space in a matter of hours." Aldridge nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy projected before him. The planet they were heading to was called Voria, a once peaceful world now under siege. Their message had been clear: help us, or we'll be destroyed. It was a plea that had not fallen on deaf ears, and Earth's fleet was now on its way to answer. "We have to make this quick," Aldridge said. "We can't afford to waste any time. The attackers are merciless. If we don't act fast, Voria will be lost forever." Torres nodded, her face tense. "The enemy is already on their home planet. We'll need to be strategic if we want to minimize civilian casualties." Aldridge's eyes narrowed. The fleet wasn't just here to fight. They had to protect the people of Voria, especially since so much of their infrastructure had already been destroyed. The attackers had shown no mercy, and Aldridge wasn't about to let them continue their rampage. "Understood," he replied, his voice steady. "Prepare the fleet for attack. I want our first strike to be fast and decisive. Let them know we're here." Across the fleet, the crew members worked quickly, preparing their ships for the coming battle. The warships hummed to life, their engines roaring with power. They were ready for whatever lay ahead. But in the back of Aldridge's mind, a nagging thought lingered. What if it wasn't enough? What if the attackers were stronger than they realized? He shook off the doubt. They had no choice but to fight. As the fleet moved closer to the planet, the tension on board the flagship grew. The crew was on high alert, every station manned by experienced officers and soldiers. They all knew the risks. The fate of Voria, and possibly many other worlds, depended on their success. Aboard the flagship, a quiet hum filled the command center as Aldridge studied the data coming in from the scouts. The attackers were waiting. They knew Earth's fleet was on its way, and they were preparing for battle. Their ships were larger than Earth's, but they weren't as fast. That was where Earth's fleet had the advantage. "We'll hit them with everything we've got," Aldridge said. "First strike, hard and fast. Let them know Earth doesn't take kindly to those who prey on the weak." He turned to his tactical officer, Commander Elena Kim, who was already calculating the best approach. "Set a course for the enemy's lead ship. We'll hit them first and disrupt their command structure. From there, we'll hit their supply lines." Kim nodded, her fingers flying over the console. "Aye, Commander. They won't know what hit them." The plan was simple: attack the enemy's lead ship, throw them into disarray, and then take out their supply lines. It was a classic tactic, but it had worked countless times before. Still, there was no certainty. The enemy could adapt, and if they did, Earth's fleet would have to adjust as well. As they closed the distance between them and the enemy fleet, Aldridge's mind focused on the mission ahead. He thought of the people of Voria, of the families hiding in the ruins of their homes, waiting for a miracle. Earth's fleet was that miracle. They had no other choice but to succeed. "All ships, prepare for battle," Aldridge ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. "The first wave will be of direct assault. We hit fast and hard. Once the lead ship is down, we'll move to their supply line and take them out. No hesitation." With that, the Earth fleet surged forward, heading straight for the heart of the enemy fleet. As the enemy ships grew larger in their viewports, Aldridge's pulse quickened. The battle was about to begin. But in the midst of the tension, there was something else, a feeling of dread that gnawed at the pit of Aldridge's stomach. He couldn't explain it, but it felt like the enemy was waiting for them to make their move. It was a feeling he couldn't shake, and it only made him more determined to win. The fate of Voria was now in Earth's hands, and they wouldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. The first strike came with a deafening roar. Earth's fleet hit the enemy ships faster than anyone expected. Commander Aldridge stood firm at the command center, watching the battle unfold before him. His hand gripped the console as his eyes tracked the movements of every ship. The battlefield was chaotic, filled with flashes of bright light and the sounds of weapons being fired. But Aldridge remained focused, knowing that each moment counted. "Commander, we've made contact," Lieutenant Torres said urgently, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The enemy fleet is responding with full force." Aldridge nodded without taking his eyes off the holographic display. The enemy ships were large, much larger than Earth's, but their movements were sluggish. Their weapons were powerful, but not as fast as Earth's. The fleet had already begun to open fire, their own guns flashing bright beams of destruction across the battlefield. "Good. They're reacting just like we planned," Aldridge said, his voice calm but filled with purpose. "Keep the pressure on them. Hit them where it hurts." As the flagship tore through the enemy lines, Aldridge could feel the intensity building. This was no longer just a tactical strike. It was a war. His orders were clear: cripple their fleet, destroy their command structure, and prevent them from regrouping. Each move needed to be swift and precise. On the bridge, Commander Elena Kim watched as the enemy ships began to scatter. They were trying to form a defensive line, but Earth's ships were too fast, too nimble. They had the advantage. And yet, Aldridge couldn't shake the feeling that this battle wasn't going to be as easy as it seemed. "Captain, incoming fire," Kim shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. Before Aldridge could react, a massive explosion shook the flagship. The lights flickered for a moment, and the entire ship groaned, as if it might fall apart. Aldridge's grip tightened on the console, but he didn't flinch. He could feel the rumble beneath his feet, but he knew they had to push forward. "Report," Aldridge barked. "Direct hit to the starboard side," Kim said, quickly analyzing the damage. "Shield's holding, but we've lost some minor systems." "We can take it," Aldridge said, his voice unwavering. "Get us back in the fight." The enemy wasn't going down without a fight. As Earth's fleet continued to press forward, the enemy ships launched their counterattack. Explosions rocked the battlefield, sending debris flying through space. The battlefield was littered with shattered hulls and twisting metal. But Aldridge could see that the enemy was beginning to retreat, their ships slowly starting to pull back. It was working. But the feeling of dread that had plagued him earlier was still there, gnawing at him. He glanced over at Lieutenant Torres, who was scanning the fleet's status. "Something's not right," Torres said, her eyes widening as she looked at the holographic display. "There's a massive energy surge coming from one of their ships. It's growing rapidly." Aldridge's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, energy surge?" he asked sharply. Torres didn't answer immediately, her fingers moving quickly across the console. She was tracking the energy readings, her eyes flicking back and forth as she processed the data. Finally, she looked up, her face pale. Their flagship. It's powering up something big, something we've never seen before. If they fire that weapon, it could take out half of our fleet in one shot. Aldridge felt the weight of those words hit him like a physical blow. They had underestimated the enemy. This was no longer just a fight for control of Voria. It was a fight for survival. "Get me a firing solution on their flagship," Aldridge ordered, his voice low but commanding. "We need to stop that weapon before they can use it." Kim was already working on the targeting systems, her fingers flying across the controls. "Locking on now," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "Launch everything we've got," Aldridge commanded. In that moment, Earth's fleet turned as one. A volley of missiles and energy blasts shot through space, tearing through the distance toward the enemy flagship. The enemy ship retaliated, launching its own barrage of firepower, but the sheer force of Earth's counterattack was overwhelming. The flagship's shields flared bright as they absorbed the incoming fire, but it wasn't enough. "Direct hit," Kim said, her voice laced with a mix of relief and disbelief. "Their shields are down. We've got a clear shot." Aldridge didn't hesitate. Fire. A massive blast of energy shot from Earth's fleet, striking the enemy flagship with all the power of Earth's might. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the battlefield, and the enemy ship's hull buckled under the force. Sparks and fire erupted from the massive vessel as it began to list to one side, smoke billowing out into the cold vacuum of space. For a moment, it seemed like the battle was over, but Aldridge knew better. This was only the beginning. "All ships, continue the attack," Aldridge shouted, his voice rising above the noise of the battle. "They're not finished yet." The enemy flagship was still operational, even if it was severely damaged. The enemy had more weapons, more tricks up their sleeves, and Aldridge knew the battle for Voria was far from won. As Earth's fleet pushed forward, Aldridge felt that same sense of dread returning. It wasn't just the enemy's firepower that worried him. It was something else, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. But as the battle raged on, one thing became clear: Earth's war fleet wasn't backing down, and they would fight until the very end. As the dust of the first battle settled, Earth's fleet regrouped, their ships floating in the cold vacuum of space like a swarm of predators, watching their prey. But Commander Aldridge knew better than to believe the fight was over. The enemy had taken a heavy hit, but they weren't defeated yet, and the energy surge that had come from their flagship still echoed in his mind. "Commander," Lieutenant Torres called from her station, "we've got an incoming transmission from the enemy. It's encrypted, but it's coming from their flagship." Aldridge's brow furrowed as he listened to the familiar buzz of the transmission. The moment it was decrypted, a voice came through, cold and stern, cutting through the tension in the command center. "This is Admiral Thalos of the Zorath Empire. You have made a mistake, humans. You will regret attacking us." The message was brief, but Aldridge could hear the arrogance in the enemy's tone. They had underestimated Earth's power, but now that Earth had struck back with force, they were angry and ready for revenge. He didn't need to hear any more to know that the fight wasn't going to be easy. "Prepare for another attack," Aldridge said, his voice sharp. "This time, they'll come at us with everything they've got." As Earth's fleet turned to face the enemy once more, Aldridge felt a sense of unease creeping over him. He knew they had the upper hand, but something about this fight felt different. Something in the air had changed. The Zorath Empire wasn't just fighting for control of the Voria system. They were fighting for survival, and they were willing to do anything to win. Minutes later, the enemy's ships moved into position, their warships forming a tight formation around their flagship. They weren't running. They were preparing for a final push. Aldridge could see the enemy ships charging up their weapons, their energy surging toward full power. It was clear that the Zorath Empire was willing to throw everything they had left into this battle. "They're charging up for something big," Kim said from her console, Whatever it is, we need to be ready. Focus fire on their flagship, Aldridge ordered, his voice unwavering. We take that down, and the rest will fall. But as Earth's ships moved in for another attack, the enemy made their move. Their flagship unleashed a devastating beam of energy, more powerful than anything Earth's fleet had ever encountered. It tore through space, cutting down one of Earth's destroyers in a single blow. "Shields down," shouted Lieutenant Torres. "That blast has disabled one of our ships. We've lost communication with them." The command center fell silent as Aldridge's mind raced. This was no ordinary weapon. The Zorath Empire had kept it hidden until now, and now that it was unleashed, the balance of the battle had shifted in their favor. Earth's fleet had taken a hit, and the damage was severe. The enemy had more firepower, more tricks up their sleeves. "We need to act fast," Aldridge muttered, his mind calculating their next move. "Target the engines. If we can disable their flagship, we'll slow them down." Kim didn't hesitate. Locking on, Aldridge stood, watching the battle unfold with a cold focus. The enemy flagship had launched another devastating round of energy blasts, and this time, Earth's ships were struggling to keep up. The vast power of the Zorath weapon was too much for the fleet to handle. "Commander," Kim shouted, looking up from her console. "The enemy flagship is recharging its main weapon. It's almost ready for another shot." The urgency in Kim's voice snapped Aldridge into action. He couldn't let that weapon fire again. If they did, Earth's fleet would suffer even greater losses. "Move in. All ships, concentrate fire on their flagship. We can't afford to wait." The fleet surged forward, their weapons blazing in a desperate attempt to stop the Zorath Empire from launching another devastating strike. Earth's ships had taken hits, but they fought with everything they had, charging in with reckless abandon. The enemy flagship trembled under the barrage of energy fire, but it didn't fall. The Zorath Empire's weapons were powerful, and they weren't going down without a fight. Just as the enemy flagship prepared to fire once more, Earth's fleet closed in. Aldridge could see the glowing energy beam charging up, and he knew they had only seconds to act. The fate of the battle rested on this moment. "Fire everything," Aldridge ordered, his voice cold with determination. The combined might of Earth's fleet struck the Zorath flagship with a force that rattled the entire battlefield. The energy beams from Earth's ships slammed into the flagship, its shields flickering as it took hit after hit. The enormous ship shuddered under the barrage. And finally, with a massive explosion, the flagship's central core exploded in a blinding flash of light. The explosion sent shockwaves through the battlefield, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop. The enemy flagship was gone. But even as Earth's ships celebrated the victory, Aldridge couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. The battle was far from over. The Zorath Empire may have lost their flagship, but they were a formidable force, and they wouldn't back down so easily. The true test of Earth's resolve was yet to come. As Earth's fleet regrouped, Aldridge's mind raced. The real fight was just beginning. The Zorath Empire had proven that they would stop at nothing to win, and Aldridge knew that Earth's resolve would be tested to its very limits. But no matter the cost, Earth would fight until the very end. After the destruction of their flagship, the Zorath Empire's forces seemed to retreat into the depths of space, giving Earth's fleet a brief moment of respite. But Commander Aldridge knew better than to trust the silence. It was too quiet. The Empire had suffered a blow, but they were not a defeated force. Their thirst for revenge would be stronger than ever. Aldridge stood in the command center, looking out at the endless expanse of stars. The battle had taken a heavy toll on Earth's fleet, but they had held their ground. The Zorath Empire had underestimated them. Again. But now, Earth had to prepare for the Empire's retaliation. The worst was yet to come. "Commander," Lieutenant Torres's voice broke through Aldridge's thoughts. "We've detected a fleet, massive in size, coming from the edge of the Voria system. It's them. They're coming back." Aldridge's stomach tightened. It had been mere hours since the last skirmish, But the Zoreth Empire had already regrouped. They were coming with everything they had left. "Prepare for battle stations," Aldridge ordered, his voice steady, though his heart raced. He turned to his officers, his eyes sharp with determination. "This is it. The final confrontation. We need to make sure we're ready. We won't get another chance." As Earth's ships began to move into position, the massive Zoreth fleet came into view. It was even larger than they had imagined. Ships of all sizes, from small cruisers to monstrous dreadnoughts, filled the space around their flagship, which had been rebuilt and reinforced after its destruction. It was clear that the Zoreth Empire wasn't willing to give up without a fight. The Zoreth flagship, now a hulking fortress of metal and energy, was surrounded by an army of ships. Earth's fleet was outnumbered, but not outmatched. They had the element of surprise on their side, and they had proven their strength in the first battle. "Commander, the enemy is closing in fast," Kim reported from her station. "They've got all their weapons charged and ready. It's going to be a hell of a fight." Aldridge nodded, his gaze unwavering. "We fight, no matter what. No retreat. No surrender." The Zoreth fleet fired first. A barrage of energy blasts lit up the void of space, streaking toward Earth's fleet. The blasts hit with terrifying force, shaking the ships in their path. Earth's ships returned fire immediately, their weapons lighting up the dark expanse, but the enemy shields absorbed much of the damage. Aldridge's ship, the Valiant, shuddered as it took a direct hit. "Shields at 60%, Torres reported. "We can't keep taking this much damage." "Hold steady," Aldridge ordered, his voice calm but firm. "We've trained for this. Just keep firing." Earth's fleet pressed forward, but the Zoreth Empire's ships fought with brutal efficiency. They had learned from their mistakes, and their tactics were sharper than ever. Each strike from Earth's ships was met with an equally deadly counterattack. Suddenly, the Zoreth flagship unleashed a new weapon, a massive pulse of energy that washed over Earth's fleet. The pulse was unlike anything they had seen before. It was as though time itself slowed as the energy rippled through space, distorting everything in its path. Ships in the fleet were caught in the blast, their systems flickering as they struggled to stay online. "Commander, our systems are being hacked," Kim shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "We can't access our weapons systems. It's like they've got a hold of our network." Aldridge's heart raced. The Zoreth Empire had developed a weapon that could disrupt Earth's technology. If they couldn't get their systems back online, Earth's fleet would be helpless. "Redirect power to the auxiliary systems," Aldridge commanded, trying to stay calm. "We have to fight back. Find a way to break their hack." The Valiant was still functional, but the other ships in Earth's fleet were suffering. The Zoreth Empire had outsmarted them, and now they were pushing forward with a renewed sense of superiority. The battle was slipping from Earth's grasp, but Aldridge refused to give up. He had seen the strength of Earth's people, their will to fight. He knew that no matter how powerful the Zoreth weapon was, humanity had something the Empire didn't, a refusal to bow down. "Get our systems back online," Aldridge ordered, his voice a roar of defiance. "We fight until we can't anymore." Kim worked furiously at her console, typing in commands to try and regain control. The seconds felt like hours as the Zoreth Empire's fleet closed in. "Commander," Kim said, her voice filled with urgency, "we've got it. Our weapons systems are back online." "Good," Aldridge said, a grim smile crossing his face. "Now let's show them what happens when you mess with Earth." Earth's ships, now back at full power, turned to face the Zoreth fleet once more. The battle wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. But Earth had one advantage the Zoreth Empire could never take away: humanity's spirit. With a rallying cry, Aldridge ordered Earth's fleet to move in. The war was far from over, but Earth wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. And as their ships surged forward, the Zoreth Empire knew that their challenge had only just begun. 4-Oath battle raged on, A clash of colossal forces in the depths of space. Earth's fleet, having regained control of their systems, launched a counterattack with the fury of a planet scorned. Every ship, from the nimble destroyers to the mighty dreadnoughts, fired relentlessly at the Zorith fleet. The weapons of Earth's warships burned bright against the black void, the energy blasts a sharp contrast to the dark expanse of the battlefield. Commander Aldridge stood at the helm of the Valiant, his eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding outside. The Zorith Empire had pushed them to the edge, but Earth's fleet had pushed back harder. The momentum had shifted, and now it was the Empire's turn to feel the weight of humanity's wrath. "Commander, the enemy flagship is coming into range," Lieutenant Torres shouted, her voice tight with urgency. Aldridge's gaze never wavered. "Target their weapon systems. We need to take that ship down." With deadly precision, Earth's ships concentrated their firepower on the Zorith flagship. Massive energy pulses from Earth's warships hammered into the enemy flagship's shields, sending shockwaves through the void. The flagship staggered under the assault, its once immovable presence beginning to waver. But the Zorith Empire wasn't going to go down easily. In response, the flagship unleashed another devastating weapon, a massive wave of energy that spread across the battlefield. The wave tore through the void, shattering the shields of several of Earth's ships. The Valiant took a hit, sending sparks flying across the control room as the ship shuddered. "Shields at 45%, Kim reported, her fingers flying over the console. "We need to get out of here, Commander." Aldridge clenched his jaw, refusing to let the situation break him. "No retreat," he said, his voice cold with resolve. "We finish this." Despite the damage, Earth's fleet didn't falter. They pressed on, ignoring the increasing casualties and damage to their ships. The Zorith flagship was vulnerable. If they could push just a little further, they could destroy it. "Commander, we've got multiple Zorith warships closing in on our position," Lieutenant Torres said. "They're trying to surround us." Aldridge's mind raced. The Zorith Empire was trying to trap them, to turn the tide in their favor once again. But Aldridge knew something the Empire didn't. Humanity never gave up. Earth's warships may have been fewer in number, but their tenacity was unmatched. "Engage evasive maneuvers. Move in and out of their firing lanes," Aldridge ordered. "We have to keep them on the defensive." Earth's fleet split into smaller groups, darting and weaving through the vastness of space. The Zorith ships followed, trying to keep up with Earth's unpredictable tactics. But as they did, Earth's warships launched a devastating barrage of fire, targeting weak spots in the Zorith ships' defenses. It was then that Earth's fleet began to gain the upper hand. The Zorith ships, though powerful, weren't designed to counter the hit-and-run tactics that humanity had mastered. Earth's ships were nimble, adaptable, and they had learned from every battle they had fought. They knew how to survive, how to strike, and how to win. "Commander, the Zorith flagship's shields are weakening," Kim called out, her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and triumph. "We're almost there." Aldridge nodded, his heart pounding. "Finish it. All firepower on the flagship." The Valiant and the rest of Earth's fleet focused all their remaining energy on the Zorith flagship. The massive weapon fired again, but this time, Earth's ships were prepared. With precision and timing, they dodged the blast and retaliated with everything they had. Energy blasts and missiles hit the flagship's exposed hull, and the shields finally gave way. The flagship was exposed. "Hit them hard," Aldridge barked, his eyes locked on the screen. Another round of concentrated fire rained down on the Zorith flagship. The explosion was cataclysmic, a burst of fire and energy that lit up the battlefield like a supernova. For a moment, it seemed like time itself had frozen. The shockwave from the blast rippled through space, pushing Earth's fleet back, but it didn't matter. The Zorith flagship had been destroyed. Aldridge stood, a sense of vindication flooding him. The Zorith Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. Earth had shown no mercy. But the battle wasn't over. The Zoreth fleet still had strength, and Aldridge knew they would fight to the last ship. Yet, for the first time, it felt like the tide had truly turned in their favor. Earth's fleet had not only survived, but had delivered a decisive blow to the heart of the Zoreth Empire. "Commander," Kim said, her voice hesitant, "we've done it, but there are still Zoreth ships in the area. They're retreating, but some of them are making a stand." Aldridge looked out at the remnants of the enemy fleet. The war wasn't over, but it was clear that Earth's vengeance had been delivered. The Zoreth Empire would never again threaten humanity. "Prepare to pursue," Aldridge said. "We finished this once and for all." The chase was on. Earth's war fleet had shown the Zoreth Empire that humanity was not a force to be underestimated. And now, with the destruction of their flagship, the final remnants of the enemy fleet would feel Earth's full wrath. The battle for the stars had just begun, but Earth was ready. They had fought back, and they had won. The war was far from over, but Earth's vengeance was only just beginning. The war was far from over, but Earth's war fleet had proven a point. The Zoreth Empire was no longer the unstoppable force they once believed themselves to be. They had made the mistake of attacking humanity's most vulnerable, thinking it would be an easy victory. Now, as Earth's warships pursued the remnants of the Zoreth fleet, they knew the tide had turned in their favor. Commander Aldridge stood at the bridge of the Valiant, watching the screens as the last few Zoreth ships attempted to flee. Their movements were frantic, a clear sign of desperation. They were no longer fighting with the confidence of an empire that had dominated for centuries. They were fleeing, trying to save whatever they could from the wrath of Earth. "We've got a few ships still trying to escape, Commander," Lieutenant Torres reported. "They're retreating toward the asteroid belt." Aldridge nodded. "Let them run. We know where they're going." Despite the damage and the losses they had suffered, Earth's fleet pressed forward. The Zoreth were no longer the aggressors. They were now the hunted. Earth had become the predator, and the Zoreth ships were nothing more than prey. Aldridge knew that the Zoreth fleet could not escape. They were trapped. The asteroid belt was a natural obstacle, but it also served as an ideal place to finish the fight. The Zoreth ships would have to maneuver through tight spaces, making them easy targets for Earth's ships, who were highly trained and experienced in all types of combat. "Set course for the asteroid belt. All ships, follow the Valiant," Aldridge ordered. As Earth's fleet approached the asteroid field, the tension in the control room was palpable. The officers and crew were all aware that the end of the war was near. There was a sense of justice in the air, a feeling that they had finally avenged the attack on their hospital ship, and that they were sending a message to the rest of the galaxy. The Zoreth ships began to slow, their efforts to escape turning into a desperate attempt to hide among the massive rocks and debris of the asteroid field. But it was a futile effort. Earth's fleet had the advantage of speed, advanced technology, and superior tactics. "Prepare to fire," Aldridge commanded, his voice steady as ever. The battle had dragged on for far too long, and it was time to end it once and for all. The Valiant and the other warships locked onto their targets, taking advantage of the Zoreth's vulnerability. With perfect precision, they fired. The sound of energy blasts echoed through space as beams of light shot across the dark expanse, striking the Zoreth ships with deadly accuracy. The first Zoreth warship exploded in a burst of flames, its debris scattering across the asteroid field. It was a brilliant fiery end, one that sent a clear message: Earth's vengeance had come. But Aldridge and his fleet didn't stop there. They continued to pursue, moving with relentless determination. Another Zoreth ship was hit, then another. Each explosion was met with cheers from Earth's crew. It wasn't just about victory. It was about sending a message to the Zoreth Empire, to any enemy who thought they could attack humanity without consequences. The final Zoreth ship attempted to flee deeper into the asteroid field, but it was too late. Earth's fleet had already surrounded them, cutting off all escape routes. The last ship tried to fire back, its weapons charging with energy, but it was hopeless. The crew of the Valiant was ready. The Valiant's weapons locked on, and within seconds, the final Zoreth ship was obliterated in a massive explosion. The asteroid field was silent once more. The war was over. Aldridge stood silently on the bridge, staring at the remnants of the Zoreth fleet. There was no joy in his eyes, only the calm satisfaction of knowing that justice had been served. The Zoreth had attacked their hospital ship, violated the rules of war, and thought they could escape the consequences. They were wrong. Earth had shown no mercy. "We've won," Kim said, her voice almost reverent. Aldridge nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the debris scattered across space. "Yes, we have. But this victory isn't just for us. It's for every person the Zoreth hurt. It's for every life they thought they could destroy." The crew of the Valiant stood silently, honoring the victory they had earned. It had been a long and difficult road, but they had fought with everything they had. Humanity had been tested, pushed to its limits, but in the end, Earth's war fleet had prevailed. And the galaxy now knew Earth would never be an easy target again. As the Valiant and the rest of Earth's fleet made their way back home, there was no cheering, no celebration. Instead, there was only a quiet sense of accomplishment. The war was over, but the cost of the victory would never be forgotten. The Zoreth Empire had learned the hard way. When humanity is pushed to the brink, Earth will show no mercy.